Hello and welcome to Bound to Be Home, a podcast where experiences of health and home are shared each week by our listeners. Featuring the trials, tribulations and victories involved with chronic illness, we uplift those to share their stories, to connect and to reflect. I'm your host, Katie Cray, a graphic designer who lost her mum to chronic illness. So sit back, relax and enjoy the company as we dive right into this week's episode. So on this very special first episode, we speak to a lady called Liz. Liz was kind enough to reach out and share her experiences with me. And before we begin, I just want to say a huge thank you because this podcast would not exist without the kindness of others. Liz frequents the Health Unlocked Scleroderma forums, but she also chairs many a committee and is an active member of her church. So without further ado, let's dive in. So, who are you and what is your condition?
I'm Liz, I'm 62 and I have two conditions that they've specifically diagnosed so far. One of them is Bronchiolitis Obliterans, which is quite a rare lung condition and means that I've only got 32% of the lung function I should have. Diagnosed that in November. And then more recently, they diagnosed scleroderma, which they've been thinking it probably was and has probably caused the BO. But they were reluctant to actually say it was scleroderma because it's still not showing in my bloods. But I have so many symptoms that they now have decided that is what it is.
And when were you diagnosed?
The scleroderma only really in the last month or so, although they've been assuming and thinking it was. But they're pretty much, every time my rheumatologist writes to another consultant, she now mentions scleroderma. So they're all now treating me as if I've got scleroderma.
With being diagnosed, was it kind of over time, like new symptoms came up and then you went and got, further analysis? Or was it more that you changed to a different doctor or someone else looked at you?
I've deteriorated quite quickly. So it's been a longer process from the point of view of there were initial signs that may have been leading to the scleroderma but weren't picked up on because I had lots of different signs. It's as if it's gone through my body. But during lockdown, not getting to see a GP, they did do some asthma tests, but decided I hadn't got asthma and just moved me on. So my GP quite early on thought it might be scleroderma, but couldn't get me to rheumatology because as it wasn't showing in my bloods. Until finally they managed to get me to the Rapid Diagnosis Centre, and that's when they realised I had a lung problem. And then I lost more weight and they realised it was critical. Then they did the lung function test and realised I'd only got a third of what I should have. Plus I'd lost a lot of weight rather quickly between appointments and needed to be hospitalised, otherwise it was downhill all the way. And so from then on, I've been treated very seriously. But up until that point, it was quite hard going.
I find with a lot of, these kind of, when after speaking to people, like the journey between going from here to there, to up to down, to different people seeing you, different people. It's just crazy and it's so almost long-winded and confusing. But I mean, it's really good that you've been diagnosed now because I think half the battle is even kind of working out what on earth is going wrong.
For lots of people, it affects so many different areas of your body. So it's so many different specialists. I now have a neurologist, a gastro person, a thoracic person, a rheumatologist, ENT, a swallowing person, a dietitian. The list goes on.
So when my mum was diagnosed, it was a similar thing of where she'd had symptoms for a long time. But no one ever connected the dots. And then finally when they did, it was like way further down to the point where it was getting a lot more serious. It seems to be quite a common thing, which again, why the kind of awareness of it is so important because it's something that is not as common. Some GPs, it's not even on their radar, which is why it's not necessarily brought up. So again, having, speaking about it, getting it out there, sharing is so important. And again, it's like you were saying, the symptoms of it affect so many different things and it could be a lot of other things, but at the same time, again, if you can connect those dots as soon as possible, and
I think we've all been trained with going to the GP that you're only supposed to tell them about one problem. If you've got a multitude of problems, what do? You pick the one that seems the most relevant at the time and you don't mention the rest. When I went to see the GP because she called me in to look at the rash. And so I said, while I'm here, would you mind if I tell you all these symptoms I've got in case they're connected? And she said, no, go ahead. And so that point was when she started to think I've got scleroderma.
Has this impacted you in terms of your like day-to-day life, in terms of going out, or have you noticed a change?
Totally. If I look back, a year ago, I was quite fit. I would go to the gym 3 times a week. I would walk my dog, and I used to do my exercise DVDs at home, used to garden, had a very active social life, very active in the community and in my church. And now I'm in a situation where I only go out for medical appointments. I'm very vulnerable. I have very little energy. So my world has shrunk, and I do a lot of Zooming, a lot of stuff online, and I guess that's my main source of contact with people, really. I've got people that come to visit me at home. I don't even go to church. I watch it online on Facebook or on YouTube. But there are people in the church that are really lovely. There's one lady that always waves to me as she goes by on the bus to get to church. Just so I feel connected as opposed to just watching it on a screen. So yes, my world's completely changed, and I've had to adapt and do my best to make the best of it, really. I gave up my job, I think about 6 weeks ago now, finally. I was doing it from home anyway, and it was only part-time. But the fact that I couldn't go out and meet people, that was the best side of the job. And, I was ending up just doing the boring admin, which isn't really me. I'll do it, but I'll do it because it's got to be done rather than because I enjoy it. And my rheumatologist said, well, the questions you need to ask are, what are you enjoying and what is giving you stress? If your work is giving you stress, you don't need any added stress in your life at the moment. So I gave up the job, and I'm really glad that I did. Because I've been doing things like this. I've been doing more research projects online and trying to support other people that are going through stuff, and you get a real sense of satisfaction from doing that because you know how horrible the journey is.
I'm so glad that even, you had these sort of support structures in place, before, and how you've been able to adapt with that. I think it's possibly, with COVID and everything, and I think a lot of the world adapted to, being able to be online because we had to. In a way, it's kind of, it's very beneficial and helpful for a lot of access requirements for a lot of people that, because I imagine your church before wouldn't have necessarily even begun to think about, live streaming or anything.
No, and I'm so glad that they made the decision to keep going. They do it really well. They've got a techie guy that's very good at doing it. So
yeah, that's so good.
Some of them can be rubbish, but the one that they're doing is very good, and they have subtitles on it as well, which is very helpful for me because I'm hard of hearing. So yeah, it's taken a while. It's been a journey. I look back. I listened to my husband the other day. Actually, we had some friends around that we hadn't seen for a while. And he said to them how much he admired how I had adapted my life to make the best of it. And I thought, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think partners and husbands and wives, and it's that unconditional love of, even though, this sucks and this is so hard, and, that unknown, and it is really difficult. It's knowing that person is there and they just want what's best for you, and they do it,
Oh, yes, definitely. My husband and my sister. My husband, because he's been there through it all, and he's become, in some ways, my carer because I'm not able to do my meds and put my NG feed on at night because I don't have the manual dexterity anymore. And I'm also quite shaky, possibly because of the high dose of steroids that I'm on. So I'm very dependent on him. And he's been such a fantastic support. But also my sister, because she's always been there for medical things, because she's got a nursing background. She's been very supportive too. When the medical professionals say something to you and it doesn't quite compute in your brain, she's quite good at explaining things for me, which is very helpful.
Okay, as, someone that's home, possibly more so than others, is there anything in particular you like reading or watching or listening to?
Although I think because I can't get out and see it myself much, I love seeing things about nature and animals and the beauty of. I love going to the beach, and I don't get there now. So it's lovely being able to see that on the TV. But I also read a lot. I read quite a lot of thrillers, particularly when they've got a bit of humour in them, detective novels, things like that. I guess for escapism, and sometimes in the night when I can't sleep. But also music. I think music is a fantastic release. I think, well, obviously for me as a Christian, it's lovely having worship songs, but I don't just listen to worship songs. I listen to all kinds of music, really. I love pop music. I love singing some of these 80s hits. And it's just nice to have something to lift your spirits, I think, particularly in the wee small hours. I talk about them to people quite a lot, the wee small hours. I think that can be the time when, if you're not careful, you plummet into the depths. So you need something to lift you if you can't sleep for whatever reason, or things are churning over in your mind. I think music is a great thing to help at that point. It's sort of finding the right songs that suit you, that lift you rather than make you go even more low.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree. I think the music thing is and the what is it you called it? The wee small hours.
For me, often the time is between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning. There's just that sense that nobody else is up and nobody else is awake. They probably are, but you don't know that they are, and you can feel very alone.
Have you got like a particular fond memory that you've got that, makes you smile?
Taking the dog to Newton Beach, which is near Porthcawl, near where I live with my husband. We used to go there quite regularly, and it's a lovely, long, flat beach. And you can see for miles, and it's, even when there's lots of people there, it's wide enough that you don't feel constricted. And the dog absolutely loves it because it's a wide, sandy beach. She's a funny dog in that she hates the sea, but she loves the sand. So she's very good at managing not to let her ball fall in the sea. Even if you throw it in there, she manages to get it out without getting her paws wet. But she's so funny, the way she absolutely loves her little ball and runs around and wants to meet every other dog there. Except when she's scared of them, then she hides behind our feet. But she'll still bark at them because she's only little. She's a Jack Chi, which is a cross between a Jack Russell and a long-haired Chihuahua. She's quite small, but she's so lovable, and she's been such a fantastic companion to me through this. But yeah, she absolutely loves going to the beach, and she doesn't get there very often now. So, but it's a lovely memory to have, really.
The mental image of this little dog like loving the sand but not wanting to go in the water is so funny to me. Like I can see it. It's like the dog's just having a good time, but also like obviously the water's coming in and out, and oh, it's so sweet. I think pets and stuff, it's a tricky one in the sense that sometimes if you are on your own, it's like being able to care for them is sometimes difficult. But if you're within a family and you've got a pet, I think as someone that's at home a lot, they are absolutely your best friend in a way.
Totally, and she knows when I'm feeling low, and she'll come and sit on my lap. She's got more cuddly as my conditions got worse, which is really interesting. It's like she's sensitive to it.
Speaking of, things within the home, do you have like a favourite? Do you have a thing that just makes you happy at home that, you see or you found yourself drawn to?
I absolutely love watching the birds in my garden. I don't have a garden with grass, it's just decking because of where we live above a railway line. But at the end of our garden is like a hedge that the birds love hiding in. And so before I was ill, I'd already created a bird feeding station on the decking. And now, since being ill, what I've done is I've kind of adapted a bit of the garden because I can't do very much gardening at a time. It's like 5 minutes is probably as much activity as I can do at a time. So I've created a smaller area that's just outside my back door. Got some planters moved from other bits of the garden to create a kind of semicircle around, which have now got bulbs with tulips and pansies and bright colours in. And then the feeders I've hung 2 hanging baskets on, as well as having the bird feeders. And I've got a little sitting area that I can sit out in when the weather's nice and watch them. Otherwise, I can also see it from the conservatory. So even if it's not nice weather, I can still watch the birds coming and going. I'm really pleased with having adapted that area because I've kind of got everything within that 5-minute reach. But it's also very colourful and I can watch the seasons change. And when I've got a little bit of energy, I can go out and maintain it and make it look nicer. Obviously now that the birds are beginning to nest, it's a really exciting season. I'm hoping we're going to see baby blue tits again and baby chaffinches. I would love to see the woodpeckers come back, but I haven't seen them this year yet. But we did have a baby woodpecker last year, and it was so cute because it used to practice its drumming on the decking, and it was hilarious. So it would be lovely if they came back.
Oh my gosh, that's such a fantastic idea of having, like, kind of bringing the garden closer and smaller so that it's more manageable for you. That's a, yeah, like you said, that's a really great adaptation. And yeah, I literally hearing the stories of the birds brings me back. They've all got their own little personalities, and yeah, the woodpecker is so cute. So the next question I have on the list is, what is one of your proudest achievements?
I think helping older people's groups to establish themselves and grow. I became a chair of an older people's social club and helped them go through the process of becoming democratic and having a proper committee with a chair. And we found that the group became very helpful for people that were suffering from social isolation and loneliness. And in the area they had village agents or community agents, which is a scheme that's sort of gone to other areas now as well in England. But one of the things they did was social prescribing, and realising that people that were coming to them, one of the big things was loneliness. We had some of the agents would bring some of their clients to our club to help get them over the door, and then they became part of the club and became very much part of it. And one of them, I think, even came on a committee and got very proactive going forward. And I felt that was a real achievement, and knowing that I was able to move and leave and it was established to go forward prior to lockdown was really brilliant. And similarly here, where I am now, I managed to become chair of a group in the autumn before lockdown, which was pretty much on its last legs because nobody wanted to be chair. And I'm so glad I took that role on, because a large number of the group were 70 plus, and quite a lot were vulnerable during lockdown and had to be shielded. And so the committee and I, particularly two of us, the secretary and myself, rang everybody round regularly to see how they were doing. And so for those that were well locked in with family, that wasn't too much of an issue. But for those that were on their own, particularly the widows again, just as we've seen in England, they were very vulnerable. And having a phone call through that time from a member of the committee really helped them. And sometimes we could help them with particular practical needs that they had too.
Oh wow, I mean, you're made to be a chair, obviously, right? You're made to be on committees and lead groups, and you know, that's so brilliant.
I'm still officially chair of this committee. I mean, they've got an acting chair at the moment. They haven't let me stand down yet, but I really need to because I can't go. But I think they're still hoping I'll get better. It's very difficult when you have to try and explain it to other people, and sometimes that takes more energy than dealing with it yourself.
That's a really interesting point, because I think sometimes, because you're dealing with it in the everyday and you understand it and you do kind of come to terms with it, having to explain it to other people that maybe they can't come to terms with it in the same way, is really difficult.
Yeah, it's funny because I compare it to cancer, and most people know somebody that's had cancer, has been in remission, and or has died of cancer. Most people have had that, and that's within their experience. But most people haven't dealt with something that's unknown and unspecific and treats everybody differently. Yeah. So it's a very different situation.
What have you found to be most helpful in your journey in terms of, it could be anything from, because I know you're more recently diagnosed, but you've obviously been dealing with stuff for quite a long time. And I was speaking to a very lovely lady at a Scleroderma and Raynaud's UK about this, because they're doing a project at the moment that is so when you're first diagnosed, you need certain information versus when you're years down the line. That's very different. What have you kind of found most helpful throughout this? Is it like searching things online yourself, or is it your GP themselves?
For me, it's been learning to make the best of each day and concentrating on what I can do and not what I can't. I think because your energy levels can go up and down. And sometimes I'm somebody that likes to set targets. You know, I like to have a list of things, tick them off, and feel I've done them every day. I've learned that I need to have much shorter lists, and that most things don't matter. They don't actually have to be done that day. They can wait till the next one, or the day when you're feeling better. So I think it's always wanting to focus on the positives. You know, what can you do? Not what you can't. Because if you think about what you can't do, it's really depressing. But there are always things that you can do. Even if it's just lying there listening to music. You can do it.
You can enjoy it as well.
I think my answer to your other question comes more under the next one when you say about advice on just being diagnosed. I've put under that, try not to Google and self-analyse too much. I'm very guilty. I'm very guilty of this. But ask all the medical professionals every question that you've got, and always make lists before you go and tell them every symptom you have, even if it seems irrelevant.
That's a really, really good one. Yeah, I think it's a tricky one because I think some people have found a lot of help by looking online, because, again, it's that thing of by sleuthing and searching and finding out, you're able to then kind of think, oh, maybe it is this, and then bring it up to a doctor. But at the same time, like you said, because so many symptoms are so universal, you're probably just going to be sitting there thinking you've got X, Y, Z, and you could be barking down the wrong tree.
It is helpful. I'm not saying it's not helpful, but it can become an obsession.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think, yeah, definitely trusting your healthcare professionals.
And if you're not sure, ask for a second opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
I think these are rare diseases, and none of them knows it all, and they're not living with it. You are.
Yes, yes. You're the expert, to be honest.
Exactly.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? While you can.
Find things to make you laugh and smile every day, and make the best of your world, and plan it how you would like it.
I think one of the things I've noticed through speaking to people is all you can do is, make the best of it. And, it's not an ideal situation that, anyone would wish on anyone. But I think being able to see the positives, to try and even this simplicity of looking out the window and enjoying the birds and, appreciating that. I think that's enough, Well, thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. There's some really wonderful moments in there. I'm still thinking about your dog running across the beach with the ball.
I'll send you a picture of her.
Please do. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see also your little garden area that you've made. That would make me very happy, because I can see it in my head, but I think that's such a lovely idea, is to kind of like, even though your bubble's kind of shrunk down in a way in terms of like where you can go, literally shrinking your area down to be more manageable for you is a really great idea.
One of the things I haven't mentioned is that it's affected all my senses, you see. So my hearing is poor. Now it's got worse. My sight's going because of the meds that I'm on. I'm now getting cataracts, so I can't see very well. I can't smell and I can't taste. So the only thing I've really got is vision and colour. And so, because people always want to bring me presents, so I always say, "Oh, bring some bright flowers," and that's kind of what I've done in my garden is to try and have as many bright colours as I can, because that's the one thing that I can still appreciate to the full. Somebody came in the other day and they said, "Oh, it's like a florist shop in here."
It's also really nice because it helps attract nature, so like bees and birds, and it's kind of bringing something positive out of it. So yeah, that's amazing. What a wonderful positive note to end on. Thank you so much, Liz, for taking part in this week's episode. If you want to send in a message about this week's podcast, please send an email to btbhpod@creadesign.co.uk. There's also a link in the description if that's easier for you. I'm more than happy to pass on messages to help people connect, as part of this podcast is to try and aid in community within the home. You can also get a paper transcript for this week's episode if you want to read it instead of listen by visiting www.creadesign.co.uk/btbh. You can subscribe and receive paper copies every time a new episode is released. Again, thank you so much for listening, for taking part, and for being part of something new and exciting. A really good charity which I mentioned within the podcast is SRUK, which is Scleroderma and Raynaud's UK. They support people for things such as scleroderma and Raynaud's, things like information, people to talk to, really, really helpful. So please support them. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time.